Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is your host, Dr. FM here, Dr. Francis Munangi Mpindu, your host on Today's Africa. This is Love Bay Afrobeat Music and Talk Radio, the number one African and Caribbean online radio. We are delighted that you have joined us. Here we are today. This is the day the Lord has made, and we want to rejoice and be glad in it. And thank you for joining us today. We go live every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are live on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, StreamYard, and Instagram. And we are just so delighted that you have made time to be with us. We go live in over 100 different countries. And so we trust that you have already liked the channel and that you're sharing this as well with others so that we get to spread the word, the good news about what is happening. And we are really delighted that our executive team continue to make this possible, creating this platform for us to have these conversations here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, Today's Africa, where we bring in guests from around the world to talk about matters pertaining to Africa. So again, we are delighted that you have made time to be with us. Today's topic is a very, very special one. We're looking at the role of media in Africa as far as amplifying our stories, our personal stories, our continental stories globally. So this is a very, very important one because in this day and age, the role of social media, the role of journalism, be it print, be it electronic, be it all these diverse expressions of technology have to be tapped into and used to share with other people who we are. For the longest time in Africa, we know that many people have been writing things about us, all about Africa. And in most cases, we end up with not writing our own. And as a result, as our chief engineer says, he says, if we don't write our own stories, if we don't write our own narratives, somebody writes that, it ends up being his story and not our story. So we're here today to talk about the role of media in amplifying our stories globally. So this is a very, very important topic to us. And we're just so delighted that you have made time to be with us. So again, this is your host, Dr. Francis Munangi Mpindu, Dr. FM here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, the number one African and Caribbean online radio. And so we're just waiting for our guest who is connecting with us momentarily. And again, given technology and sometimes, things get delayed, but we are here. We saw her briefly and she was just about to log in. So one of the things that really encourage me when I look at the role of media in Africa is the fact that the young and the old, especially the young people, they're so much into technology. When we think of what is happening in Africa, what is happening in Burkina Faso, what is happening in Namibia, what is happening in Southern and Eastern and Western and Northern Africa, our young people are very much into this. And as a result, news and happenings and all that, they are at our fingertips. Things happen in real time and we get to see and hear about what is happening. So we really need to be intentional about how we engage the social media, how we engage technology. And so we are in for a real treat. And so feel free to send in your comments, your questions in the chat room as well. We do have provision for that. So we are really, really delighted to have this topic today. And our guest is someone very, very knowledgeable in this area, someone who has been doing this for many, many years in Africa. And she is based in Africa. And so we are really delighted about this. And so, again, thank you for making time to be with us today. Um, this is, again, Love Bay Afrobeat Music and Talk Radio. On Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, it's not just music, it's a variety of programs. We have mental health, we have relationships, we have marriage programs, we have premarital counseling programs, we have businesses, we have quite a variety of programs. So 24/7, Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio is on, and I have, made this a habit when I wake up most mornings or in the afternoon when I am busy working on other things. I would have Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio in the background to share my space with, and so. We just want you to know that there are a variety of programs, including music as well. So it's a wonderful spot that we have. So today we're talking about the role of media in amplifying voices worldwide, voices, African voices, and everybody's voices. But really, we're focusing on what is happening in Africa. And so this is a very, very special program that we have today. And our guest should be joining us momentarily. I was talking to someone we are going to be having on the show not long from now, and who is actively involved in radio in Southern Africa. And we were talking about the importance of radio. There was a time that radio was very localized, but now, just like Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, we have online access 24/7, and so people are tuning in, people are engaging in, radio on a daily basis. And so we, as someone said, online radio is here to stay. The radio is there to stay, which is really wonderful. And so, again, this is your host, Dr. Francis Munangi Mpindu, here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music and Talk Radio. And so we are delighted that you have joined us. Some of the programs that we have had in the past, they continue to be run as well. So feel free to go and check us out. We are on YouTube. Many of our previous programs, if not all of them, actually, they are there. So you can tap in and select which ones you would love to connect with. And if you missed any one of those, feel free to let us know as well. You can just go on YouTube and Facebook as well, and tap into that. So again, we are excited about today's topic. I was talking about what is happening around the globe and what is happening in Africa, and how we are able to tap into what is happening in real time. That has positives and negatives. Oftentimes there are things that are happening, but for the most part, it's actually a very, very positive thing, because when something happens and other people get to know about it, it just brings this global village right there at our fingertips. And so we are happy that technology has allowed us to have these connections. So again, feel free to uh, send questions. Feel free to make your comments as well. Just checking the comments box here, and feel free to send in. Uh, this is an opportunity for us to participate as well. So it's not just listening and just watching, but you can also interact with us. So here we are on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, the number one African Caribbean online radio. Our studios are in Toronto, in Canada, and we will be connecting with our guest momentarily. We saw her just briefly, so she should be logging in momentarily as well. So again, we want to thank Mr. TYB, our chief engineer, for making sure that things are running the way they should. And oftentimes, like I believe it was last week, technology, sometimes it acts up, but sometimes it works in our favor. So we are delighted that this platform has been created for us. And of course, Today's Africa is one of those shows that is continuing to grow. So please feel free to share this channel with others as well, so that they can log in every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we go live on YouTube, on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and of course, StreamYard. And so we are glad, we are delighted to be here. So someone, a friend of mine who is actually into social media, he's actually a professor of social media studies in the UK, and I'm also hoping that we'll be able to have him join us. He was talking about how there are all these restrictions sometimes, depending on who you are interacting with. In some of our countries, we actually realize that the media is heavily censored or monitored, and there's need for that, but there's also value in just allowing people to share what is happening in ways that just make people interact with others and get to know. We see that JC here just sent a note and says, "Great show, keep it up, guys." Thank you very much, JC. We appreciate that. And I see that our guest is just coming into the studio, so we are delighted that she is here. And again, thank you for making time to be with us. So, Miss Odelia.
Hi.
Miss Odelia Ntimo, we're glad you have joined us all the way from Ghana. We were just waiting and waiting, sitting at the edge of our seats, and here we are. Our guest is a very, very special guest, as we always do each Saturday. She's a PhD student, a lecturer. She's into media relations and connected to the University of Professional Studies in Ghana. So, without further ado, here, when we think of Miss Odelia, what would you like us to know about you, in addition to some of the things that I just mentioned briefly here?
All right. So my name is Odile Antiamwa. I have been a media leader for the past 22 years here in Ghana, but I have footprints all around the world in relation to reporting on different subject matters, but in particular, when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to business, and then when it comes to rural reporting. So that is how my career started as a journalist. And then in the past 5 years, I have, someone will say, metamorphosed into different things. So I wear one hat as an entrepreneur who enables businesses, especially women-led businesses across the continent. So I have about 3,500 women led businesses in my network called the Oxford Africa Women Leadership Institute, where we support women led businesses find access to market, technical support, and also finance. So that's one of the hats I wear. And then I consult for international organizations like the World Bank, like the Global Environment Facility, all in relation to what I've done throughout my life, which is media. So I do consultancy for different brands on media relations, communication, and branding. And then in recent times, I have been lecturing in media production, and the current lecturing opportunity that I have is in media relations, which is at the University of Professional Studies, where I'm also doing my PhD. So I say, in a nutshell, I've also interviewed about 8 presidents. I've done different things, trained media houses across Africa for the BBC World Service, amongst many things that on top of my mind, sometimes I even forget some.
What a delight it is, Mr. Delia and Tiamo, to have you join us today. I mean, when we connected through one of our executive directors, I was so delighted to get to know who you are and what you have done and what you are doing. And I'm like, wow, here is a lady who is, I mean, here's a lady, here's a leader who is active and who is involved in the community and doing all kinds of things. And just to hear about you having interviewed uh, 9 presidents and getting involved with women in different countries across Africa, and how you are connected and connecting organizations with regards to opportunities in Africa and opportunities outside of Africa, and entrepreneurship and all that. I mean, they're talking about over 37 different African countries. And I was like, you are the most uh, qualified person to have, you know, as our guest in this topic today, when we talk about the role of media in amplifying voices worldwide. This is a real treat. So we are in for a real treat, and as our the viewers and listenership continues to grow, we know that the role of media is something that is here to stay. And so when just tell us briefly, how did you glide into this? How did you end up into this gold mine?
Well, so I started off so my first degree is actually in geography. I'm a geography student, and then my master's degree is in oil and gas communication. So all of them having nothing to do with media at all. But when I was in my first year at the University of Ghana in 2002, I met a gentleman in one of the halls called Commonwealth Hall, and he thought I had a fantastic voice, and he thought that this voice on radio will be absolutely great.
I
And
agree,
so
by
he
the way.
pushed me.
I agree.
So he pushed me to come into radio. And the very first day I was at the radio station, which is a student radio station, to go through my interview, the station manager at the place, after doing the interview, indicated that, young lady, if you're serious, you will go places. And like that has been like the message that goes with me everywhere I go, or the endorsements that goes with me everywhere I go. So from level 300, I got a permanent job in a commercial radio station called City FM. That in 2008, I told myself that I was tired of doing radio and I wanted to go into television. And so there was a competition. I filed for the competition and I win the competition. Then that comes with a 1 year internship at the television station. At that time, after my 1 year internship, my boss goes to the CEO of the business and says that if we don't employ this girl, we would have lost such a gem. I basically didn't know what she had seen. But by 2009, 2010, I had started winning awards for the station. And then the Minister of Environment had identified me as like someone who could really break down environmental stories. But remember that my study of geography actually also helped me in understanding environmentally related stories. And so that actually also helped me. And then I also lived with my father alone when I was young. My father raised me from age 8 up to the university. So I had a certain appetite for risk that a lot of my female colleagues will not take that risk. And sometimes even my male colleagues will not take that risk. So, for example, in my line of duty, I've almost drowned before, just going following a teacher who travels once a week. He travels 12 hours trying to get to his duty post to teach young children. So in one of his travels, I decided to follow him and go through all the treacherous things he goes through before getting to school. And that came along with doing crossing two rivers, and in the second river I almost drowned. And whilst others were looking on, they obviously could tell that this woman was in big trouble. So there were some children swimming by the riverside, and then they jumped into the water and came to save me. And having almost drowned, somebody would say that, did you continue the journey? Obviously, yes. I had traveled about 10 hours already, some about 7 hours walking, and 3 hours on the motorbike. And so going back was not an option. I had to forge forward. And so having done all these kinds of strange stories and pushed for different things, obviously my brand began to really grow in Ghana and beyond. And then, of course, the fact that I didn't have like one subject that brought me into the industry was also like a very big advantage. So for a geography student, I study tourism, I study medical geography, I study physical geography, I study regional geography. So by the time I come into journalism, I've got different a hand on different subject matters. And so that sort of gives you an edge over somebody who just studied journalism and has to understand different subject matters. So that sort of gave me a push as well. And then I'm like a killer Christian. So I pray a lot. I am directed by the Holy Spirit to do what I am supposed to do. So these different hearts actually helped me throughout my journey and to be here. In
This is wonderful.
2022,
Yeah, you know what? Just listening to your story. By the way, there is some music in the background. If you could take care of that, we would appreciate that. It seems there's some music in the background. So just
yeah,
just listening to you, your journey. I can imagine how, there's this connection now, just based on how you were raised, the kinds of things that have been part of your journey, and how you're tapped into all this to ensure that you're actually using your context and applying that in how you are carrying yourself out in the world, using the very context that you grew up in, your own personal stories from before and stories that are happening now. It's amazing sometimes how, we get connected to different things that will help us to end up being in a place where we should be. And we're just delighted that, this is who we are. It sounds like that music or whatever is happening in the background is still there, but
Yeah,
and
actually, I've actually come for a meeting in church, and so let me just change my location again.
okay, I think that will be very helpful. Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate that. So uh,
Is it
we are here on
better?
Love Bay. We are here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music and Talk Radio. This is your host, Dr. Francis Munangi Mpindu, here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music and Talk Radio, your number one African Caribbean online radio. Our broadcast today, we're focusing on the role of media in amplifying our voices worldwide. And we are delighted to have Miss Odilia here, who is a PhD student, and she's joining us from Ghana. She's a lecturer in media relations, and she is also actually working on her PhD in media as well. So we are delighted to have you with us today. It sounds much better now. I think the background and the voices and all that were much better now. So again, so what do you see? What do you see? I know that Ghana, for your information, I mean, I'm very passionate about Africa, but Ghana has a very special place in my heart. And I'm hoping that one of these days, now that I've met you and other Ghanaian friends, I'm hoping that myself and my significant other will be able to swing by and meet some of our friends in Ghana, because Dr. Francis Kwame Nkrumah is someone who is very special to my heart. And may his soul rest in peace. He was a Pan-Africanist. I will never forget, those words. I'm not African because I was born in Africa. I'm African because Africa was born in me. So true. What is, he said, what is the significance of independence for Ghana if the rest of Africa is not independent? And so when you see the role of media, what would you say are some of our challenges in Africa? And I know this is a big one because that's really where I would want us and our viewers are interested in knowing this. What are our challenges? What do we see as solutions? How do we take the media and take it up, bring it up a notch and enable us to share our stories, as we're saying today, to amplify our voices, our it sounds like maybe that location has okay, there you are.
Hello, Dr. Francis.
Hello.
So I was saying that there are many things that connect to Africa's media, and there, there are many challenges that impede the progress. I'll take it from two perspectives. from traditional media and from new media, which is digital media. From traditional media, ownership is a big problem. Ownership is a big challenge in Africa. One of the key things is that most media houses are owned by politicians. It means that once politicians own the media house, they dictate the style, the language, the content, and everything. Media ownership in different parts of the world, apart from Africa, um, the ownership is quite different. But even when you look at the United States and you look at some of the big media houses like CNN, you notice that ownership is even determining the kind of content that goes on the platform. So ownership is a critical challenge that we have in Africa. Once politicians change after every 4 years, 5 years, or 6 years, then it means the quality of work that is done in the media house, if there's a change in government and your government is out of power, that becomes a big challenge for you as a media house. It affects the content, it affects the leadership even sometimes, and it also affects the quality of work that goes on, because once your government is out of power, it means that the continuous financing of that particular media house becomes a big challenge. So that is one of the things that traditional media faces here in Africa. For digital media, there's still also a lot of challenge. Regulation is a big challenge, so that in false news that really is propagated on new media, if not checked, becomes like a huge problem. There's a huge problem when new media will have to deal with different things, which they face all the time, and it will require some very strong leadership to make sure that we are getting the right kinds of.
This is very, very helpful information you are sharing with us, Miss Odelia here. I mean, just by virtue of what you do, the kinds of things you just pointed out, I mean, it's so real. You know, you're telling us that there is a difference between the traditional media and, of course, the digital media. The traditional ownership is a real problem, because what happens is whoever owns that determines the content and determines the quality, determines leadership and direction and all that, and that obviously impacts the output. And then, of course, now we have digital, which tends to be more fluid, but at the same time, we realize that it's subject to all kinds of interferences, or it may not necessarily be interferences, but so many opportunities, good and bad, because regulation, like you said, becomes an issue. Like it's easy to promote something that should not be promoted, because it could be false news. You know, it could have a perspective that is driven by one's motivation, one's perspectives, and all this, and so what then do you see as possible solutions to this? I mean, I know that from what you just shared, I mean, it is ongoing, and I don't think there are easy answers. But what do you see when we look at Africa as some of the solutions with regards to making sure that the difference, or rather the discrepancies between traditional media and the digital media continues to be? It looks like these are two sides of the same coin. that will always be there. But how can we tap into this from a positive perspective so that we are continuing to amplify our voices in ways that enhances who we are?
What I'll say is that for traditional media, the ownership will have to be diversified, and then investments also come from private sector. So for Ghana, media is actually owned by private sector politicians. That's the challenge. And so once someone is an NDC or NPP, when the government comes, it actually affects the media house. But there are a couple of other media houses in Ghana that actually do not have that political colorization that has also become really big. So we need more such radio and television stations like the multimedia group kind of media houses in different parts of Africa where truth is told authority and where people know that the content will not be altered no matter which government is in power. So once the private sector's involvement is really high and integrity is really there, I think that's some of those problems can be solved. Then when it comes to digital media, I think the environment is great. The data shows how even institutions are using platforms to project their brands and how this is affecting the purchasing power, the purchasing of different individuals, especially middle to upper class Ghanaians and middle to upper class Africans. We should continue to use the platforms so that the environment is diversified and great things really happen in the media space of Africa. Uh, for example, YouTube is such a fantastic platform that it is really underutilized. When it comes to the digital media space, I will say that even on YouTube, just about 0 to 3% of the population is posting content. And when you take a look at the kind of content that is also being posted, one of the key things that we need to have posted is financial literacy information, which is the highest information that YouTube pays the most amount of money. Yes, a lot of African media leaders and people within the media space do not project this kind of brand for the continent. So the different things that we really put in the perspective and also in on African media platforms are very important to be able to help us as people to grow and to develop. When you take a look at TikTok, in 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 China, where TikTok comes from, you notice that the algorithms, the kind of information that is shown the Chinese, it's not the same kind of information that is shown to Africans. So there's too much entertainment on TikTok. Yet we need to we need to minimize our entertainment as Africans and see how we can actually demonstrate financial literacy, leadership, revenue generation, amongst other things. Once we don't have that kind of information that is being churned out there, we will just have a population that is like on drugs, that is always high, but does not really have content, good structured content that really shapes their lives. For example, I will say that when it comes to financial literacy, you take a look at all our population, financial literacy is very little. So people do business and they don't understand why they must keep proper books. But how much of that content is sitting on platforms that is skewed and structured for the African market? So you will find other content being put out there from the United States. But then when this content is brought and you watch it in Ghana, does not really reflect our situation. For example, I do some content for people to understand the business space. And when I compare it to other content that is being done, everybody is talking about investing. My point is, what kind of investment do you put into the Ghanaian economy? Remember that we've had a lot of challenges with our currency and with inflation until recently. So if you ask people to invest, where should they go and put the money so that by the time they are going to redeem this money, the sort of interest they have accrued is not eroded by inflation? So you see that the two spaces are totally different. While in the developed world, investment is like the key conversation to have, in here, the kinds of investment we're doing may not necessarily be stocks, may not necessarily be treasury bills, may not necessarily even be in different financial markets, but probably in commodities. But who is educating our population so that they know that our stories aren't the same as the Western world, and we should be looking at different spaces to put our investments. So we need to really understand our African challenges and profess African solutions. That does not require us to be consistently high and always having entertainment. That kind of entertainment should be in other jurisdictions where people are really satisfied.
Miss Odelia, you are touching on things that are really, really precious here, just priceless. I am hearing, or we are hearing you saying that there is a difference between an educational focus and entertainment focus, and I think one of the hardest things to do is balance. Most of what we find um, in social media tends to be very entertaining. For example, you made reference to TikTok, and there's so much happening there that, I mean, you could spend the whole day and days in, days out, just looking at various aspects of entertainment on TikTok. But then you're saying, what is happening to um, in the areas of education, financial literacy? What are we doing in terms of educating our people? And I really think that this would be something we need to be intentional about. And when you made reference to ownership, which you're saying in Africa, for the most part, our media houses or media platforms, they are owned by politicians, people who have access to, uh, you know, leadership and control, financial control of these media houses. And how do we then ensure that we have uh, great content that will help us as Africans to move ahead? One of the things I find interesting, and Miss Odelia, you alluded to this earlier on. You said you were going to a church function, and we could hear that you are at church, which is great. That's one of the things I appreciate very much about us Africans. There's a very strong spiritual connection, and we don't mean spiritual in the general sense here. We're talking about a real connection with God, and we take that very, very seriously. Now, I am thinking that here we have the church, or the presence of Christianity in Africa is growing, and I'm saying to myself, what is happening to the growth of Christianity, faith, with regards to young people who are committed to truth, objective truth, becoming part of the infrastructure of Africa? We want to see more and more of our young people into politics, but who have strong values, who are committed to truth, who have a ground that is solid, standing on solid ground that says, this is who I am. I don't apologize for having this faith, but I am a politician who is committed to making sure that things are done right. So what is happening in the education or educational institutions with regards to bringing on board young people who are not caught up in embracing the fact that anything that's coming from the West, we need to embrace that, we need to do that, we need to reflect that, as if where we are and what we have is insignificant. So
Yeah.
give us some ideas on that.
So, Dr. Francis, you can tell that one of our biggest opportunities as a continent is for us to come up with a lot of technical universities where there are a lot of practical things being done to solve our challenges as a country or as a continent. So, for example, in Ghana, there are quite a number of such universities, such secondary schools that are actually churning out. So recently, I own a brand new Fiat that was brought from Italy, which is currently having challenges because we do not have a lot of Fiat mechanics in Ghana. Guess where I have taken my car? I've taken my car to a school where it's a technical secondary school where the young people are being taught how to fix cars. Guess what? They have done a better job than the traditional mechanics whom I have used in the past few months. So it can be done. We can do it well when we decide to have our education being tailor made for our economies. We have to change the way we have structured our education. For example, I am doing my PhD in a professional university. I chose that university because they have a host of people who are going to come from the world of work to share perspectives on how theoretical things are being transposed into reality and how it works. How do we marry theories with things that really work in our working environment when it comes to solutions? That is why I chose to go there and not the two other universities that I attended in the past. But that is because I am looking at how to collect data to be able to help African businesses make informed decisions. I will have to hear from people who have had experiences and marry it with theory. So we need a lot of this kind of educational structures to be able to do professionally. And that can only happen if our leaders understand where we are currently and which particular educational structures can help us to solve our unique challenges. I think that this is one of the ways that we can push our education to support our structures.
Miss Odelia, you are absolutely right. I can't agree more. And you are touching on some things I know. These are live wires because the way we have been educating our young people, the way we have been equipping our young people with skills for the future really has to change because there are certain things that have become part of our history that we need to shake off or we need to adjust quickly because they are no longer serving us well. And I think for us to hear about this wonderful story of you having this car, not being able to get it fixed from the traditional mechanics, but now you're taking it to a school that is committed to equipping young people with mechanical skills, and now they are able to do a better job on your car than the traditional. These are the kinds of things that really excite me about Africa, and I'm saying thank you for sharing these stories with us, because we know that if we are not sharing these stories, we never get to hear about them. And again, we are talking about the role of media in amplifying our voices worldwide. And we are privileged to have Miss Odelia with us here. Miss Odelia is a PhD student in media studies, and she is a lecturer, and of course, a PhD student at the uh, University of Professional Studies in Ghana. And it is really wonderful to know that there are uh, intentional efforts to making sure that universities of this nature are actually put in place. This is exciting. These are things that excite me about Africa, and it just shows that we have come a long way. I would imagine that, whether we bring in people from outside of Africa, and mostly from Africa, as Miss Odelia is helping us to understand here, that most of the lecturers and professors at the University of Professional Studies are actually people from workplaces from within the country, and that is exciting. And I just hope that our ministries of education right across Africa are paying attention to what we need to do with our young people, to make sure that our young people are learning things that will help them, to prepare them and put them on the global market, not just so that they go around the world to do this, but so that they are able to contribute to what is happening globally, but amplifying the voices of Africa. Because for the longest time, as we have seen, and we're talking about this today, that most of the time other people have written stories about us, and they stop being our stories, they become their stories. And we're saying, no, we don't want to see that continue to happen. So we really need to think about the way we think, and we need to be self-analytical. We need to be reflective. We need to think about the present, and we also need to think about our future. And no one is going to do this for us. So it is encouraging to see that there's this commitment to understanding the role of the media from the traditional perspective, as well as from the digital perspective, and saying we need to marry these two. We need to bring these two, because as we juxtapose them, we see that there's value from both sides, and we can complement each other. And also, we need to make sure that our young people, who are not just the leaders of tomorrow, but the leaders of today, are understanding the role of the media, so that they continue to ride on it and use it and engage in social media as a way of enhancing our lives as Africans. And I think she made some very wonderful comments and perspectives, talking about there has to be integrity, there has to be content that is not destroying us but enhancing us, because those things affect the quality, they affect the final product, and we need to be intentional about that. Someone said that true education is what you remain with after you forget everything else that you crammed. and I'd like to believe there's a lot of truth in that, because it's what we do. It's what we do. Talking about the role of media, there's one uh, there is one, I guess, aspect of social media that is entertaining but very educational. And I have in mind here one where there's this young man who is a billionaire. I believe, I can't remember whether he is in Nigeria or he is in Ghana, but he goes, I think he is in Nigeria, Mr. Bike. I think that's what he goes by. Mr. Bike goes around in the marketplaces. He looks for people who look sad or who are trying to sell. You know, they're hustling, but they don't seem to be gaining a whole lot of ground on a particular day. So he has his crew with him, you know, his camera team, and they will focus on that. He will go there and try to find out um, what is happening on that particular day, so that uh, as they focus on that, they end up blessing someone with resources to be able to take their business to another level. So it is really wonderful to see that educational aspects. But one of the things that really pained me, and I'm saying this with a heavy heart, there was a lady who was really struggling that particular day, and she ends up being a recipient of this blessing. And in the end, um, they ask her, how many children do you have? And apparently, she was left by her husband when she ended up with two girls and there was no son, which is really, really sad. I mean, in this day and age, we know for a fact that it's not just the woman who is responsible for the sex of the child. It's mostly male. I mean, scientifically, it is the male who determines the sex of the child. But anyway, it's both male and female coming together to create this new life. Anyway, fast forward, what ends up happening is she says, my husband left me when I had the two children. No, two births. So from the two births, there's one girl and then twin girls. And so she says, one of the things I want is to make sure that my children go to a good school. And so Mr. Bike is very reflective. So he asks the question. He says, "Where do they go to school?" And this young lady mentions that my children go to a government school, but they're not learning anything. You know, that really struck me. Like, it struck me to the core. And I'm thinking, okay, so shouldn't our government schools be some of the best? I mean, I know we do have private schools, and I know that we also even had one of our guests who was helping us to understand the role of the private schools in the mainstream education in Africa. But the fact that someone who is struggling to make ends meet, she's on the marketplace trying to sell these few products that, you know, she buys and resells and all that, but she's making reference to a government school not being a school that she wants her children to be. And I'm saying to myself, what is happening to our ministries of education? Or maybe I should say some of our ministries of education, so much that our schools are not really producing and doing the kinds of things that they should be doing. And it is sad. So we need to do something with regards to making sure that the levels of education in our government schools, in our private schools, they are actually complementing each other. So for someone who is struggling to make ends meet, to come up and actually say, I don't want my children to be going to this government school because they're not really learning anything. And proof was right there in the pudding, because Mr. Mike, or Mr. Bike, rather, he ends up asking these children, and I think they were like in primary two, and they were just being asked simple math skills like, 1 plus 2, 2 plus 2, 2 plus 3, and these children were having difficulties. Now, I'm not trying to paint everybody with the same brush here. Objectivity is very, very important. It could very well be that maybe there are some learning skills that these children need. But by and large, what we're saying is we really want our government schools to have good reputations. People should say, yeah, you know what? Yeah, we may not be at the same level as some of these well-established private schools, but the government schools are producing the kinds of young people that we need in our countries, especially when we know that governments are pouring resources into this. So we need to do something with our education system. And I'm hoping that we do have some people who are in education. We have education gurus out there. Please let us know, connect with us so that we can have you as our guest. So we are here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, your #1 African Caribbean online radio. And this is your host, Dr. FM, Dr. Francis Munangi Mpindu. And we're here talking about the role of media in amplifying our voices globally as Africans as well. For the longest time, many people used to write stories about us. And as one of my friends says, when someone writes a story about us, it stops being my story, it becomes his story. And so we are changing the narrative. There is no excuse for not doing what we should be doing for ourselves, because no one will be able to lift us up and help us. Yes, we might need other people to partner with us, but by and large, this is our responsibility, and we cannot continue to fault others. We cannot continue to use as an excuse why we are what we are and where we are. We can't be that for the rest of our lives. Miss Odelia is bringing some aspects to us that are really, really important. And we're just so grateful that she has been with us. It looks like she is continuing to have some difficulties in connecting with us. I guess the location where she was, but oh man, what a treat this has been, having someone of her caliber share with us here today. One of the things she said was, we need media that is diversified. We need media that is committed to good content, that is not just determined by people who want to capitalize or to take advantage of the media, but we want a leadership that is objective, a leadership that is committed to quality, to making sure that the information that is shared in the media is good information. It is solid. It is not being used for personal purposes by other people, but people who are committed to truth telling, and that is very, very important. And I'm looking at our time here. I know that we started late, but it's amazing how the hour goes by pretty fast. And it looks like our guest for today, Miss Odelia Tiamwa, is having difficulties coming back. But oh man, what a treat it has been to have her with us today, talking about the role of media in amplifying our voices globally. Definitely, we need to minimize our media usage. I think if anything, here's one of the takeaways for me. We need to minimize our media use, especially when it comes to entertainment. We need to remain objective. We need to be committed to education. We need a media that is educational in nature. And she pointed out what's happening with TikTok. I'm actually told, I don't know how far true this is. The TikTok that is actually used within China, I'm told that it is very educational. But whatever they put out around the world tends to be very entertaining. And I think we can do the same. I mean, we have people who are very creative. I was talking to my significant other the other day, and we were talking, and we're saying we are so delighted that we live now in a world where people's giftedness is shared right there, the finger, at our fingertips. The information is right there. And there was a time that all these gifted people never even knew that there were some people who were, stand-up comedians. They had all these skills, because the role of the media wasn't what it is today. So we value that. But what we're saying is, let's put more educational content. Let's be committed to encouraging one another to do the right things. We need a core value that is emerging from the fact that we're comfortable with who we are, but we're not comfortable with where we are at, because there's always room for improvement. And we need to help our young people. And I know this because we do have some people who are financial gurus, and we need to introduce aspects of financial literacy that will help our young people to pick up some of these values. We have a lot of hustlers in Africa. We do. I mean, you go to the marketplaces, what you see out there is not just older people, but the young people who are creative and buying and selling things. What we're saying is, my brothers and sisters, let's continue to be objective. Let's continue to equip our young people with skills that will help them to be competitive in this global village from a technological perspective, so that they are able to make a difference in the world, and not just to ride on being content consumers, but to be content creators. But whatever we're creating is actually contributing to a better Africa, and not just one aspect of entertainment. So we really need a balance. When I was in university, one of my university professors used to say, one of the hardest things to do in life is to maintain a healthy balance. And it's easier said than done. But let's maintain a healthy balance here between entertainment and education, making sure that the education that's being produced, the content around education, is really helping us to become better people, to become responsible citizens or global citizens, so that we are really contributing positively to what is happening around us. Again, this is your host, and we have been here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music and Talk Radio, the #1 African Caribbean online radio. And we had our special guest, Miss Odilia Ntiamwa, who is a PhD student at the University of Professional Studies in Ghana. And she's a lecturer, and she is a media relations guru. And what a treat it has been having her with us. And again, we want to thank you, our listeners and our viewers, for making time to be with us today. Indeed, what a treat it has been. She has brought a lot of nuggets. She has left a lot of nuggets for us. And we will definitely have her back. And hopefully next time around, she would be in a better location so that we are able to continue our conversation here. And again, thank you for being with us, our viewers, our listeners. We go live every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, the #1 African Caribbean online radio. And we go live on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, Instagram, and of course, StreamYard, which is one of the most reliable platforms for these kinds of things. And I want to thank our chief engineer, Mr. TYB, who is always in the background there to making sure that things go well. And sometimes there's some things we cannot control, but again, thank you so much, including our executive team. Thank you so much for creating this platform here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music and Talk Radio. And I just want to remind you that coming up in the hour is the Caribbean Flavor with Mr. Marcus and Miss Jen to Blue. You don't want to miss that. So we will be together. Keep on keeping on, and let's continue to be voices of hope to those around us again. And thank you for being with us today. And all those behind the scenes who support, please like and share this media with others as well, so that we continue to increase our presence, not just in Africa, but globally as well. Remember, we're going to tell our story, because if we don't tell our story and allow somebody else to tell that story, it becomes his story, and we don't want that. So again, thank you for being with us. We will connect again next week as we bring in another guest. So again, thank you very much. Keep up the good work.